People first content is the only way to create content because it humanizes your brand, it focuses on a niche, and it serves somebody other than yourself. And that to me is the formula for creating great content in this age of the grand experiment of media. Even the way that we define media has changed in the last 5 months. Often when you think about media, you think of the traditional forms, right? You think about news, you think about broadcast media. That's what we grew up learning. That's what we were educated on when you went to school for this type of thing. And that's not what we're talking about anymore. We're talking about digital audio. We're talking about short form video. We're talking about social content. We're talking about memes. It's all getting wrapped up under this umbrella of media. And so if brands want to play the game and they want to play it well, they have to focus on people first media production. And so as we're all exploring and redefining and defining and refining what it means to build a brand with a media-led strategy, I am asking the brightest and smartest and most innovative people in the B2B space what their thoughts are. And through their thoughts and their questions, we're going to come up with answers and actions to help us all be better at playing the game.
Rachel Downey.
Nikki Lewallen Gregory is a long-term friend, fellow founder of a podcast business. She launched the People Forward Network, back in 2021, I want to say. And we've always continued to collaborate together. She's a podcast host. She's passionate about the space that we're in. And we really have like-minded alignment around building people forward, people first companies. And so content comes into the conversation all the time. Here were some thoughts that she left me.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Rachel Downey.
Is not available. At the tone, please record your message.
Hey, Rachel. Was thinking of you. So podcasting is pretty darn incredible to move people inside of an organization culture forward. And we are constantly trying to solve the problem of communication is such a challenge. We don't know how to reach everyone. It feels like the telephone game around here. People aren't reading our emails. And our solution, leverage a podcast. It can do so much good to help you with clarity, storytelling to help people really connect with what you're trying to do and move forward and build relationships. And, just making sure that we meet people where they are today, which is, on their mobile device, wherever they are, making it really simple to reach them. I think there's really 4 components to this. One is leaders getting better at storytelling and truly connecting with their people. So think about your favorite podcast host. Mine, one of them, is Mel Robbins. I love her. I feel like she's my best friend. I've never met her. She does not know me. But the point is, through podcasting, I feel very connected to her. Think about how you can apply this as a leader inside your organization. How do you build relationships with people at scale? And podcasting can do that. You have to get good at being vulnerable and being relatable. And there's a mix between professional updates and business stuff and sharing yourself. And so I think leadership's ability to share communication that the company and the people need to know, and also leadership's need to build relationships with their people. That's just, an incredible, powerful impact of podcasting for internal workplace efforts. And then I think about all of the amazing employees inside of an organization and how much we lack learning from each other because we don't have the right medium for that. So I want you to just picture, who is that rock star inside your organization that they're just crushing it. They always do. What if we could take that person and have them teach everybody else and at the same time recognize them? And so we put that person on a podcast episode. We do hear a lot that people will say, well, they are not going to want a podcast. Well, guess what? We're going to make it super simple. They won't even know they're podcasting. We basically interview them and ask questions, and we can take our voice out of it, or somebody at your workplace could do that. but we capture the greatness and the learnings from that person, and we also recognize them along the way and shout them out to the workplace, to our company, and it's pretty darn incredible. It's like mentoring meets recognition and scaling it. And then culture gets moved forward when people feel the impact of their work. Sometimes we're removed from how much our customers are gaining from our services and what we do. It's easy to do what you do and then forget about the impact if you're not working around the client, the customer. If we're sharing those stories, we ask customers to come onto the podcast and we have them share the impact. Also, the community impact that we have, the organizations we give back to, the communities we serve, and we get to hear a voice of someone that is grateful for what our company does to serve that community or that cause. Dang. I mean, yes, share more of that. And that moves culture forward. And finally, what's a workplace that doesn't develop people? Like when a workplace is developing people and people are growing, man, the culture and the vibe is there. And so, how to use a podcast to bring in, let's say that you have consultants or coaches or programs that, let's just call it strengths, Gallup strengths. You have somebody that that's an expert in that works with you guys. What if you could put them into your podcast and then it's on demand episodes for people to listen to? Or you have learning and development trainers inside of your organization and all of these topics, put them into your podcast. Let people consume that on demand. And finally, consider putting personalized development stuff in there, like how to help people lessen stress. What about how to sharpen your morning routine? So I could go on and on, but I think you get the point. I am very passionate about podcasting for moving culture forward. And the two keys here, I think, are it builds relationships and it gives clarity to people because people can consume it whenever, wherever they are. And you watch the metrics of how many people are actually listening because you can see that. And we're reaching people and we're building relationships. And with all this good content, it's moving our business forward and building a fire culture. Well, those are my thoughts, Rachel, but I'm curious about yours.
Nikki and I are so aligned with the way that she thinks and the things that she says. And I think the thing that her and I get so passionate about is you can be using podcasts to drive culture, to drive communication. The yes and I'm going to add to what she's saying is to reduce the pressure of feeling like you have to launch a podcast and take it one step up and focus on audio. And the thing that I get inspired by and the thing that makes me want to connect the dots further is I think too often brands get distracted by the word podcast and they think about all the things that means in terms of standing up a podcast channel, developing the content for it consistently, et cetera, et cetera. And instead, I'm challenging people to take what Nikki's saying and say, what if I replace the word podcast with audio, just audio? And the reason I'm saying that is because a podcast is a channel. It is not the media. The audio is the media. And brands have to understand their audio strategy, which can include standing up a podcast. But more importantly, what audio allows brands to do is it allows people to communicate much faster and with less risk than a video or even text. And if you implement an audio strategy, you can do it in a very timely manner, meaning you can use it in real time, much faster than you can in standing up video, all those kinds of things. It can be very raw, very authentic, and you can leverage it just like you would a podcast, but you can keep it internal. And you can do that on purpose because you understand the power of audio. Audio is the one form of media that doesn't require you to stare at a screen. And when you don't have to stare at a screen, you actually create a more intimate relationship because it's happening between your two ears. And you can do it while you're enjoying things you love, like walking outside, like standing in the grass, maximizing your drive time in between errands and things like that. And so brands that embrace the flexibility of creating on-demand audio without taking on the pressure of, I got to stand up a podcast, that's one step in the right direction towards creating digital audio as a part of your overall media approach to growing your brand and driving deeper, meaningful connection. And so what Nikki's talking about gets my wheels spinning because it's like, it doesn't make sense for all brands to launch a channel, like launch a podcast channel, because there's lots of things you have to do to sustain it. There's lots of things you need to do to nurture and grow it. And make sure that the premise is X, Y, and Z, and all those kinds of things that good marketers and good creators understand. Rather than thinking about, I need to launch a podcast, it is about wrapping your arms around the digital audio strategy for your brand. Because if you're a leader leading a company, you do have to communicate. And the best way that people can hear you is when they can feel you. And the only time they can feel you is when they can hear your voice and understand the context and the layers that come into conversation and communication that comes through connection. And so having an audio strategy is critical for today's brands and for today's companies so that they can create true connection without getting distracted on what it means to launch a podcast itself. I'm not saying podcasting isn't a strategy you should be deploying, but I'm challenging people to think more about audio strategy. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is that, SiriusXM just launched some digital advertising reports, and they have a section on their audio report that was issued for 2023. And one of the stats that I found astounding, actually, is that they're sharing that 51% of streaming audio listeners say streaming audio is replacing time they used to spend with social media. And so for companies that are thinking about video first, or they're thinking about their social media strategies, and they're not paying attention to their audio strategy, they are going to lose and fall behind because people are actually wanting time away from the screen. They want to be able to enjoy your brand or listen to your content or have a conversation, whatever, fill in the gap there, while they're living their life, while they're at the gym, while they're taking a vitamin D break and going on a walk outside. So finding those opportune times for intentional connection using audio is a critical piece for how you think about content creation going into 24. Do you have a question that you'd love me to find the answer to? Click the link in the show notes and leave me your voicemail, and I'll chase down an answer.